Hello Spidey fans and Spidey friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, the J-Man, and today I'm going to be talking about my favorite superhero of all time, Spider-Man. And I've got a lot to say actually, so this video is going to be quite lengthy. First of all, I want to mention that I recently made a trip to my local library and I found something pretty good. I found something very interesting, so I want to show it off to you guys. There it is. Ta-da! Spider-Girl, Issue 1, Volume 1. Okay? Now, why is this particular book so important, you might ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that, because I'm about to let you know. And naturally the phone rings, so never mind that. But, here we have the front of the book, it says, there we go, let me try to fix that for you. There we go. You probably can't read it. Oh, you kinda can. Alright, anyway, it says, whatever happened to the daughter of Spider-Man? Exactly, that's my whole point, that's my whole topic that I've been going over tooth and nail throughout the past months when I've been talking about Spider-Man. I've been reviewing the Clone Saga, like going through it with a fine-tooth comb and really trying to figure out what people's biggest criticisms were, what was going on behind the scenes, and you know, there was obviously a lot of conflict of opinion. But if you go and you look, type in wikipedia.org and type the Clone Saga, you'll be able to see there's a huge section that I pretty much edited myself. Took the liberties of really restructuring how it was written and what was being said in there. And you know, it had little bits and pieces of information about some of the things that were happening behind the scenes, but I really detailed that. So if you go and you look at that article on Wikipedia, that information is provided by yours truly, okay? I particularly rewrote that whole piece, the whole section, and I did a hell of a lot of research, okay? I did a ton of research online and you know, looking at the books myself and reading interviews from the people that were working on the Clone Saga, the editors, the writers, the what do you call it? Glenn Greenberg, who wrote the Osborn Journal, and he was the I think he was the co-editor for a while, just one notch below the editor. But there were several editors in chiefs, and if you go on Wikipedia.com, you can read that whole controversy. But my point is, the Clone Saga was extremely controversial. A lot of people hated it, and it led to an extreme boost in sales, followed by a major drop in sales. Okay, I think people lost interest because the Clone Saga went on for so long and took so many twists and turns, and it didn't solve anything. It didn't come to a point. It didn't explain itself. There were so many loose ends. Okay, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The Clone Saga, to me, was a very, very important time, maybe even the most important time in Peter Parker's life, okay? And why do you say that? Well, two things. First of all, the major thing that happened in the Clone Saga, number one, Aunt May died, okay? Aunt May actually died. Okay, later on, that would be retconned to where she was kidnapped, and she never really died, and that person who died was an actress playing her, but that's a bunch of BS, because that storyline, years later, I forget what it's called exactly, something about the Gathering of the Five, something like that, but that storyline was extremely, how should I say this, dumped on, hated, rebuked, so on and so forth. So, if they had just left it the way it was, where Aunt May had died in Amazing Spider-Man number 400, I think the Clone Saga would be a lot more relevant. And then also the second thing that happened in the Clone Saga, Mary Jane became pregnant and supposedly kind of sort of had a baby. Well, did the baby live or die? That was the big question, okay? Which brings us to Spider-Girl. Spider-Girl is that baby from the Clone Saga. Alright? Now you can say how? How can that be possible when in the Clone Saga the baby was stillborn or the baby was abducted? We're not really exactly sure. Well, some people view Spider-Girl as an alternate timeline, a possibility, but not the main Marvel 616 universe. So they call it MC2. And there were a bunch of other MC2 stories that were in the same universe. But really, honestly, Tom DeFalco, who wrote Spider-Girl, was the editor-in-chief when the Clone Saga was originally developed, okay? When everybody was sitting down, the team of Spider-Man, all the writers and editors, well, the editor-in-chief, got together and they said, what can we do to really boost sales? And they came up, this guy, I think it was J.M. DeMatteis, came up with the story of the Clone Saga. And at the time, Tom DeFalco was the editor-in-chief. Alright? So he was in charge of this thing. He had a good game plan. He had a really good strategy set. And it probably would have ended with, eventually this. The Spider-Girl continuity would become relevant, would take place. Alright? But instead, he got fired. Why did he get fired? Why did he get fired? Well, that's a long story. But my whole point is that this could have very well been the actual continuity. Okay? Now this takes place several years down the road, obviously, because Mayday Parker, the daughter of Mary Jane and Peter, is like, I don't know how old exactly, but probably around the age of 11, 12, something like that. So you can imagine that it's set pretty far ahead in the timeline. But we could have been looking at this as the the future of Amazing Spider-Man. And I would have preferred the Clone Saga go the way that Tom DeFalco had planned it. If everything went according to Tom DeFalco's plan originally, I think the Clone Saga would have been much better. Peter Parker would have moved on. He would have moved forward, and he could be married, enjoy his life as a married man, as a father figure. And then someone else could have stepped in, someone very similar to Peter, could have stepped in and taken over the role of Spider-Man. Say Ben Reilly, which was what they were trying to do, is get Ben Reilly in there as Spider-Man. And it didn't work out that way. People didn't take to Ben like Tom DeFalco really wanted them to, unfortunately. So things went back and forth. But anyway, this is going to be the end of part 1 of my video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.